Welcome back to the Arcarflux TV, everyone. Today we're diving into some truly seismic news rocking the world of football governance. I mean, when the president of a national federation comes out and says there is no trust in Infantino now and there is no going back, you know things are serious. We're talking about Lise Klaveness, the Norwegian Federation president, and her incredibly strong words against FIFA president Gianni Infantino. Don, this isn't just a casual disagreement, is it?
Absolutely not, Caleb. This is a full-blown crisis of confidence. Klaveness isn't just expressing concern, she's calling for his resignation. That's a direct challenge to the very top, and it signals a deep fracture within the football community, especially between Europe and other confederations. It's a statement that reverberates through the entire structure of FIFA.
And it's not just Norway. I mean, UEFA, the European governing body, has already declared it's lost confidence in Infantino and intends to boycott FIFA competitions. This isn't just about one federation. It's a growing wave of dissent from a powerful bloc. It feels like a moment of truth for FIFA's leadership, doesn't it?
It certainly does, Angelina, but let's not forget the context here. The main catalyst for this latest outcry seems to be Infantino's controversial plan to seek private investment for a company that would run FIFA's competitions, including the men's and women's World Cups. It's a massive move, and apparently it was developed without proper consultation. That's where the unilateral and egregious act of poor governance accusation from CONCACAF came from, even if they've since softened their stance slightly.
That's a crucial point, Aurora. This private investment plan really seems to be the straw that broke the camel's back for many. Infantino and FIFA actually had to apologize to national associations over how it was developed. You rarely see that kind of public mea culpa from an organization as powerful as FIFA.
And even with the apology, the damage seems to be done for some. It highlights a fundamental issue of transparency and decision-making within FIFA. When major financial restructuring plans for core assets like the World Cup are developed in a way that leaves key stakeholders feeling sidelined, it inevitably erodes trust, especially after all the promises of a new, more transparent FIFA post-Blatter.
Exactly. You'd think after the scandals of the past, FIFA would be bending over backward to ensure every decision, especially one with such huge financial implications, was above board and universally agreed upon. But this felt like a return to some of those old ways, where decisions were made behind closed doors and then presented as a fait accompli.
And what's fascinating is the split we're seeing. While Europe is largely unified in its opposition or at least its lack of confidence, other continents are rallying around Infantino. Mexico and Argentina, for example, have expressed their full support. CAF, the Confederation of African Football, gave him unanimous support. It's like a geopolitical chess match playing out in football.
It absolutely is. Let's delve into that split. Don, why do you think we're seeing such a divergence? Mexico's FMF, for instance, said it supports the leadership of President Infantino in continuing to promote the development of football through institutional strengthening, which sounds almost like a direct counter to CONCACAF's earlier rebuke of him.
Well, it comes down to perceived benefits and allegiances, doesn't it? For federations like Mexico and Argentina, there might be promises of increased funding, developmental programs, or even, in Argentina's case, support for their bid to expand the 2030 World Cup finals to 64 teams. CONMEBOL, the South American Confederation, is lobbying hard for that. Infantino's support can be a powerful lever in achieving those national and continental ambitions.
It's transactional, really. While Europe, with its established leagues and massive financial clout, might feel it has more to lose from a potentially dodgy private investment deal, developing football nations often feel more dependent on FIFA's central funding and initiatives. So for them, backing the incumbent president might be seen as safeguarding their access to those resources, or even leveraging their vote for future benefits.
And let's not forget the sheer scale of FIFA's membership. With 211 member associations, getting a simple majority can be influenced by a few powerful confederations. If CAF and CONMEBOL, for example, put their full weight behind Infantino, that's a huge block of votes right there, making it incredibly difficult for European dissenters to force a change.
Indeed. So even with the likes of England and Wales formally withdrawing their support for his re-election and UEFA threatening boycotts, Infantino still has significant backing. But let's go back to Lise Klaveness and Norway. Her statement was exceptionally strong. She explicitly said Infantino does not have the institutional trust required to govern FIFA stably and called for him to resign now. Adan, what's behind Norway's particularly vocal stance?
Klaveness is a formidable figure, a qualified lawyer, and she's been an outspoken critic of Infantino since her tenure began in March 2022. She's not new to this. Her concerns extend beyond just the private investment plan. The NFF has raised questions around the awarding of tournaments, the inaugural FIFA Peace Prize awarded to Donald Trump, and even the overturning of a ban for American forward Folarin Balogun during the recent World Cup after a call from Trump. These aren't minor issues. They paint a picture of questionable judgment and undue influence, which fundamentally undermines institutional trust.
It's about integrity, isn't it? When you're talking about a global organization like FIFA, perceived fairness and transparency are paramount. The Peace Prize to Donald Trump, for example, just feels incredibly out of place and politicized for a sporting body. And the overturning of a ban after a phone call, that raises huge red flags about consistent rule application and undue influence. These are things that make you question the core values of the leadership.
Exactly. And Klaveness isn't just speaking from a place of general unhappiness, she's articulating a pattern of behavior that, in her view, makes Infantino unfit to lead. She mentioned the international football cooperation is very much in trouble, and that's a big statement. It suggests the current leadership is actively harming the unity and shared purpose that football is supposed to embody.
She's also dismissed speculation that her name has been put forward as a possible successor, saying it's not a theme at all. That's interesting, suggesting her motivation isn't personal ambition but rather genuine concern for the state of football governance. What do you make of that, Angelina?
I think it lends a lot of credibility to her stance, honestly. If she were seen as positioning herself for the top job, her criticisms might be dismissed as opportunistic. But by waving away that speculation, she's reinforcing the idea that this is about principle, about the future of the game rather than a power play. It makes her a much more formidable voice in this debate because it's harder to discredit her motives.
It also highlights the lack of perceived viable alternatives, or at least a united front behind one. The current structure makes it incredibly difficult to unseat an incumbent president, especially one with strong support from key confederations. Klaveness is essentially saying, someone needs to step up, but it's not me right now, which is both humble and strategic.
And the fact that the Norwegians are hoping other UEFA countries will join their call for him to step down is telling. It indicates they recognize the need for a larger, more unified push. A single country, even a principled one, can only do so much against the behemoth that is FIFA. They need strength in numbers if they want to force a resignation before the next election cycle.
Speaking of collective action, the World Players Union FIFPro has also weighed in, accusing Infantino of a profound abuse of presidential power and demanding governance reforms, including a seat on the FIFA Council for a players' representative. Adan, what impact does FIFPro's involvement have?
FIFPro's voice is crucial because it represents the actual players, the heart of the game. Their accusation of profound abuse of presidential power carries significant weight, especially when they're demanding specific governance reforms. It broadens the scope of the criticism beyond just financial transparency to include the very democratic processes within FIFA. Players have a vested interest in the integrity of the sport and the decisions that affect their livelihoods and careers.
It really highlights the disconnect. The people who are literally on the pitch making the game happen feel like their voices aren't being heard, or worse, that decisions are being made against their best interests. A seat on the FIFA Council for a player's representative isn't just a symbolic gesture. It's a demand for direct input into the governance that impacts them most. It adds another layer of legitimacy to the calls for change.
And it also touches on the larger issue of who benefits from these decisions. If FIFA is meant to develop football for all 211 member associations, as Mexico stated, then surely the players, coaches, and fans should have a more direct say in how the game is run. The private investment plan, for example, could have significant implications for player welfare, scheduling, and commercialization, yet they felt excluded from its development.
Another powerful move being considered is by members of the FIFA Council themselves. They're reportedly working to gather the 19-strong majority needed to request Infantino to call a meeting where he can be held to account. And if they can't get that majority or he refuses, they plan a governance boycott by ceasing to attend meetings, aiming to paralyze FIFA operations. Angelina, that sounds like an extreme measure, but potentially very effective, right?
It's an incredibly bold and potentially disruptive move, Caleb. A governance boycott would essentially grind FIFA to a halt. If key council members stop attending meetings, no decisions can be made, no policies can be passed, and the entire machinery of international football leadership freezes. It's a high-stakes gamble, but it shows the level of desperation and the belief that normal channels of accountability are simply not working. It's a sign that they feel they have no other choice but to force the issue through non-cooperation.
And it would be a very public demonstration of no confidence, far more impactful than a simple statement. The optics alone would be devastating for Infantino. It would scream to the world that there's a fundamental breakdown in trust and governance at the highest levels. The pressure to concede or resign under such circumstances would be immense, even if he has support from other confederations.
But for that to work, they need significant, unified commitment. If only a few members boycott, it might just be seen as a tantrum rather than a legitimate challenge. They need to ensure they have enough power to truly paralyze operations, not just inconvenience them. And that's where the regional loyalties could become a challenge again. Will the members from supportive confederations join the boycott?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The political maneuvering behind the scenes must be intense right now. So, looking ahead, with Infantino up for re-election next year in Morocco, and European FAs like England and Wales already formally withdrawing their support, what do we realistically expect to happen? Is a resignation truly on the cards, or will he weather this storm as he has others?
It's going to be a fascinating few months. A resignation before the election is unlikely unless the governance boycott gains massive traction and truly threatens to incapacitate FIFA. Infantino has shown resilience in the past, and with strong backing from Africa and South America, he can likely secure enough votes for re-election. However, a re-election under these circumstances, with a significant bloc of European nations openly opposing him and potentially boycotting, would be a Pyrrhic victory. It would usher in an era of deep division and instability for FIFA, potentially hurting the game globally.
I think this is less about an immediate resignation and more about a long-term battle for the soul of FIFA. Even if he gets re-elected, the ongoing defiance, the calls for reform, and the potential for a boycott mean that his next term would be plagued by legitimacy issues and constant internal strife. The trust, once broken, is incredibly hard to rebuild. This feels like the beginning of a prolonged period of contention within world football governance, and the damage to FIFA's reputation could be long-lasting.
And it begs the question of what kind of FIFA we want. Do we want a FIFA where decisions are made unilaterally, or one that truly represents its 211 members and prioritizes transparency and ethical governance? Claveness's statement that there is no going back isn't just a threat. It's a recognition that the old ways of doing business, even the new old ways, are no longer acceptable to a growing number of stakeholders. The pressure for fundamental change, regardless of who is president, is building to an undeniable level.
A powerful thought to end on, Aurora. It's clear that the beautiful game is facing some ugly truths about its leadership. Whether Gianni Infantino resigns, is unseated, or holds on, the landscape of global football governance is irrevocably changed by these calls for accountability and the stark divisions we're seeing. Thank you, Adan, Angelina, and Aurora, for this incredibly insightful discussion.